Here are my thoughts from an outsider's perspective on the Watchtower 2022 convention Saturday morning first video. This one starts off with a music montage video, this time with the lyrics in English. We see a sad little girl who apparently misses her mom and is trying to find encouragement from Watchtower publications about one day being recreated on the new Paradise Earth so she can see her mom again. And from there, we see lots of JWs expressing hopeful emotions as they look at the publications too, with the song playing all about how Paradise Earth will be one day. As I mentioned in another video, this is the carrot on the stick that the Watchtower uses to keep JWs devoted and working hard for them. I've noticed in these videos that there always seems to be so many shots of food and people eating. Is the average JW starving, so this is the hope of food that they have for the future? Oh wait, no. This is supposed to be subliminally reminding them to be thankful for the spiritual food provided by the corporation. Next, they jump right into another music montage video, this time sung in Portuguese and showing lots of cute children and animals. If you were looking for your cute animal fix video today, look no further. It does make me wonder what the song is about, though. And then it's right into video number 3 with a song sung in Ilocano. This one is just shots of people reading Watchtower publications, mailing letters, and doing their field service online. Nowhere near as fun as the last one. Then it moves into lots of shots of JWs wearing masks. Just a little reminder there to stay scared and trust the org to save you. And now on to the first song. This one is definitely in the cringe-worthy category again. Really weak rhymes and really just a song about how they're going out everywhere looking for what they call honest-hearted ones, or those who are inclined towards salvation, whatever that's supposed to mean. In other words, they're looking for people who will listen to what they have to say, ask no questions, and just believe what they're told. They're looking for good little drones to add to the ranks. I get that they need songs like this to feel some sort of encouragement because the amount of hours they each have to put in to get even one baptized convert is enormous. It sounds like most of them are not even able to say they have converted a single person in all those long hours of work. Next, we're on to Brother Kenneth Flodine to teach us how to try and win that convert. Isn't it neat how they can just adjust the phrase that they use so often? Good news of the kingdom to good news of peace to fit the theme of the conference. So convenient. It's interesting how he reads from Romans about declaring the good news. What was the good news that Paul preached? We can find that in 1 Corinthians 15 verses 1 to 4, can't we? Does it sound anything like what they're saying in this video? He also talks about trying to find people who, even if they don't know it, yearn for peace. This is exactly the same as their usual commentary about finding honest-hearted ones, which just means people who will hear them out and just blindly accept whatever they say. So again, he's saying the same thing as they usually do, but just throwing the word peace in there to fit with the theme. This whole part of the discussion is to try and get JWs fired up to do their field service. Somehow he tries to use 1 Timothy 4:16 to back this up, even though Paul is simply exhorting Timothy to be a faithful shepherd here, not to go door to door or write letters to promote jw.org. He also tosses the word zeal in there, though it's not in the text anywhere, not even in the New World Translation. But the way he does this is so sneaky that if you're not looking at the verse itself, you might think he was right. I'm amazed that he decided to use this verse as his proof text. I'm sure there would be many more that he could have used without having to throw the word zeal in the way he did. Now on to a video about regaining your fiery zeal, which Brother Kenneth will painstakingly dissect in minute detail. Basically, you have a couple that are feeling like going door to door is becoming too mundane and depressing because people don't want to talk to them, which he later calls unresponsive territory. That is such a corporate sales term, isn't it? So they get fired up by looking on the website and talking to their JW friends about how they can be more positive and upbeat. And guess what? That solved the problem. I really can't imagine that the average JW sees this and thinks, oh, this is exactly what I needed. Also, they're still not going door to door anyway, so what's the point? He tries to use Hebrews 6:10 as a proof text for keeping your field service zeal, though in context that verse is about serving one another in the body of Christ. Oops. Next up is President Robert Sirenko to remind you that you should be well prepared to make your sales pitch because otherwise you'll sound stupid and unprepared. He says, "We have the best message ever, the good news of peace to share with people." What happened to the good news of the kingdom? Is it just the good news of peace for this month and then back to the kingdom again? He goes on to twist Luke 10 into being about their field service, which it has nothing at all to do with. Note how it even says not to keep moving from house to house. Yes, I understand. Context is a huge issue here. So, yes, Jesus' disciples were being sent out to share the good news in the marketplaces and other public areas where they could engage with a variety of people. It's also interesting how he tries to use this passage as part of his be prepared talk, when the only thing it says is carry no money belt, no bag, no sandals, and greet no one on the way. Then it goes back to the video of the couple that has been feeling a lack of zeal, and then got inspired. But this time, they are excited and on their way, but forgot to prepare their sales pitch before they left. Again, it looks like they're still going door to door. Did they not get the memo? Next, he quotes from 1 Corinthians as his proof text to using Watchtower's sales tools like their witnessing example videos and articles. And shortly after that, he twists 2 Timothy 2:15, in which Paul is exhorting Pastor Timothy to accurately handle the word of truth into all JWs doing field service diligently. This is the kind of thing I've definitely come to expect from Sirenko. Next up is Anthony Morris, who reminds JWs that they're always on duty. I wonder how that makes the average JW feel. I find it interesting how he talks about what he calls informal witnessing. You only need to learn a term like that when you turn your religion into a corporate structure with dedicated sales time cards. For actual Christians, what he calls informal witnessing is just what we do because we love the Lord and want to share him with the world. But for Brother Morris, it sounds more like, since they aren't going door to door, they have to try and imitate what we already do naturally. I remember prior to the past 2.5 years hearing witnesses scoffing at this idea of just sharing the gospel with people around us and in our lives, or even at the grocery store, because it wasn't organized enough. He uses the example of Jesus talking to the woman at the well to promote this novel idea he's presenting. He also points out that Jehovah's Witnesses don't judge people. I could almost ask, is this new light too? Because I've sure seen an awful lot of judgment from JWs, particularly on social media. Of course, they're not the only ones who do it. I'm not saying that. My issue is with his claim, or is this instruction? I don't know. If it's instruction, let's see how it goes. Will all JWs now stop judging people who disagree with them, and especially everyone who they are shunning? At this point, we see a short video of the same couple having a hard time finding ways to witness to people when they're at a restaurant. So they figure out that you need to find things to talk about that you have in common. Of course, this is nothing new to JW, so it's not like some new tip they had never heard before. I remember years ago seeing a video on their website where I think it was a couple of JW women walking onto the property of a woman who was out gardening. So they comment on the garden to start the conversation. That is really a very natural way to start any sales pitch, isn't it? A door-to-door vacuum salesperson would likely do the exact same thing because it puts the householder at ease and gives them something enjoyable to talk about. Okay, this is an aside, but it reminds me of years ago when I received a phone call from a salesperson who said she wanted to do a quick survey. I had the time, so decided to do it. Of course, I know that whenever someone calls you, you need to be very guarded about any information you share. They're basically data mining. It could be harmless, or it could be criminal, or something in between the two. She asked me about enjoyable things like whether I had any pets, and then we had a fairly long, fun conversation about pets. Eventually, she found a way to maneuver the conversation into all the magazines she wanted to send me, all free for the first month, of course. When she couldn't get me to agree or give her my credit card info, she even tried to transfer me to a manager to see if he could talk me into it. I found the whole thing quite humorous. She really believed that all the friendly chit-chat had my guard down so low that I would buy her product. And I'm sure it works on some people. I'm just not one of them, though. Anyway, back to the video. I will say that I appreciate Brother Morris not spending 5 minutes dissecting the video this time. He just talked about letting the Spirit move and then moved on to his next twisted proof text. This was another really weird one. He takes Revelation 14:6 and uses it to tell a story about how he used to tell witnesses that he was, out in field service with, I guess, how there are angels close by when they're getting any negative responses. He apparently used to point up and ask if they could see the angel. Really? I know he's trying to sound like it's so profound, but it really made him sound more like he was maybe mentally diseased, as they like to say. He uses this story to say that the angels are leading JWs to the rightly disposed people. Okay? So what does this make JWs think if they're only getting negative responses no matter what they do? Would they then think that the angels aren't leading them, so they must not be loyal enough, or something like that? Now we're on to helper Gary Bro, who tries to use 1 Corinthians 3:6 to convince JWs this means that you should keep trying to do follow-up calls in your field service, and of course preparing well for them. Again, we have another short video of a woman doing follow-up calls. I do still have to wonder why they have so many videos about going door to door, since they don't even do that anymore. I mean, on a practical level, maybe they filmed them all before the lockdowns and were just looking for a way to use them at the convention? Because as far as I can tell, it's very likely that JWs will not be going door to door again, maybe ever. Cold and flu season is just around the corner already, and we know lots more fear-generating lockdowns are bound to go right along with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go right back to quitting the magazine carts and even stop attending meetings in person again, through at least the winter months anyway. I hope I'm wrong though, because I love it when they're out at their carts. It makes it much easier to find JWs to talk with. I did get a chance to see some recently, but oddly, they only wanted to talk about the weather and then basically kindly suggested it was time for me and my friend to be on our way. I've never had that happen before. From here, Gary goes into minute detail to tell JWs all the ways they should be careful to schedule their return visits and even put it in their calendar so they don't forget. This sounds like Sales 101 for, teenagers at best. I mean, really, are there JWs who need to be told this? Like it never occurred to them before? Are JWs in the practice of setting appointments and then not showing up? That has never been my experience. They pride themselves on how organized they are. I know sometimes they might say, I'll look into that and get back to you, and then you never hear from them again. But that's not the same as bailing on an appointment. I think they already take that really seriously. Next up is Brother William Malinfont, who starts off by reading just the first part of Hebrews 6 verse 1, ignoring the rest of the verse and the rest of the sentence. I'm guessing that's because that pesky context would not fit with the way he is trying to use it. Here they have another video of the same woman, this time doing a watchtower study with someone in her field service. I noticed they keep calling it simply a study. That's at least a little more honest than calling it a Bible study, which is what I have usually heard JWs call it, though they only ever study watchtower literature, not a book of the Bible. Brother William goes on to give some tips on how to focus on specific things in their literature, and also points out how great the progress is when their students decide to start attending the Kingdom Hall. He focuses in on this a while later, as this is clearly the primary goal they want witnesses to have in mind. Then you really know you've got them suckered in, right? That's when it must be time to start with the love bombing I've heard so much about. He goes on to twist some more scriptures as part of the literature lessons to focus on. One example of this is where he uses Proverbs 3:5-6 as the reason to keep doing all the field service so that you too can be Jehovah's friend. We've heard them talk about being Jehovah's friend constantly through the whole conference, and I'm guessing that's how it always is. I can see why, since they don't want you considering all the passages that talk about being a child of God or a son of God, because in their view, that's not for you. I found it particularly laughable when he goes on to talk about teaching their students how to study the Bible using jw.org and the JW Library. Quite the sales pitch, isn't it? But I'm guessing most JWs would take this as good advice because it's so much easier to just use their material than to really dig into the scriptures in their own context for yourself. JW.org and the JW Library are their gold standard sales tools, which you have to expect a major corporation like that to have on hand ready for every one of their salespeople. I'm finally getting towards the end of the book I mentioned in another video a while back called 30 Years a Watchtower Slave. And wow, it's amazing how you can so clearly see the way they went from what they considered to be a religion to a purely corporate sales structure. Watchtower is a business, first and foremost, and according to Schnell, that was very much the purpose of Joseph Rutherford when he took the role of president. Now, as he starts to wrap up this little pep talk, he twists Hebrews 13:15-16 to again point towards continuing to promote the organization. Then it's off to Mark Sanderson and a promotion of full-time service and why that is such a great thing for young people to commit to. So basically, if you're getting ready to graduate from high school, don't bother with that further education and a decent career to support yourself and one day your family. No. It's much better to forget about all of that and become a janitor or window washer, maybe even for Bethel, putting every spare moment of your time instead into promoting and working for the Watchtower basically free of charge. That's the only way to have a really great life, right? I know many of us have noticed that the governing body calls themselves the slave and their followers publishers, when in fact it's the exact opposite, right? Sadly, when anticipating the very real question about how a JW is supposed to support himself when he has given up the means of doing so, he twists Matthew 6, which is talking about trusting in the Lord instead of living in worry, attempting to make it mean that you can just trust Jehovah to provide for you when you choose not to do meaningful work to earn a living. Does the Bible not talk a number of times about if you do not work, you do not eat? But Sanderson here is suggesting that if you work for free for the Watchtower, somehow Jehovah will provide you with food, shelter, etc. It's just abusive and disturbing. How he tries to use Luke 7:35 was particularly comical, since it very clearly, within its own context, has absolutely zero to do with his little work for Watchtower for free promotional. In this case, he was talking about family members being concerned for young JWs who decide to focus on Watchtower sales instead of seeking a career. Huh? Then he goes on to quote James out of context for the same purpose and lots more sales pitch to make young JWs feel like this should be their only goal in life. And to drive the point home, they go to yet another video about some JWs who did exactly what he's telling all young JWs to do, and of course how happy they were with their decision. Sanderson finishes his talk by telling everyone that if you do as the people in the video did, you would be following the same path that he himself followed. It almost came across like it was suggesting that you too could become a governing body member and have an awesome life one day if you work hard enough for the org. At least that's the impression I got. Finally, they close with song number 135. I guess we're to assume this song is in the first person from Jehovah to all JWs. but it occurs to me that the me in this song is really the governing body. Thanks for checking out my Cliff's Notes and personal comments on this video. Next time we'll move on to Saturday morning video number 2.